This evening, I'd like to call this school board meeting to order Monday, April 25th, 2011 at 7:35 p.m. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing and join us for a moment of silence for the men and women serving in the United States Armed Forces, those fighting in harm's way, our prisoners of war, and those missing in action. Thank you. Please be seated. I would like to announce that there was an executive session on Monday, April 18th, 2011 at 8:15 p.m. to discuss personnel and legal matters. This brings us to item 4 on the agenda, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Joel.
This evening we have a number of recognitions. Received a short presentation by Mrs. Carmine and myself. I'm going to ask Dr. Soder to come in.
This evening we have the pleasure of recognizing a number of students and teachers. We would like to start first with this year's Citadel Heart of Learning finalist. Ms. Carrie Matan has been selected as finalist for the Citadel Heart of Learning Award. This award is a joint collaboration with Citadel and the Chester County Intermediate Unit. The nationally recognized program is designed to honor and thank Chester County's teachers while raising awareness of the impact of their hard work and dedication not only on their students and their students' families, but on the entire community. And I just wanted to share some of the comments from those who nominated Carrie. She always maintains a level of professionalism without seeming inaccessible to her students. She is wise beyond her years and a tremendous asset to our OJR community. She is truly a teacher who cares about each and every student, adapting to their personalities and needs and communicating with parents and fellow teachers when needed to extend that support. She does not hesitate to go beyond the normal expectations of classroom teacher. And finally, every time I walk into her classroom, I see another example of what an amazing educator she is. Thank you so much and congratulations. Patricia Janda is here. photography, we have Kelsey Netting, who I don't believe is here today. For film, Alan Gift, first grader from French Creek. John Buckwalter, first grader from Helen Armstrong, a senior from our high school. In dance, we have Suraj Sharma.
He's away, he's coming tonight. That's the guy, Mom.
Grace Murray. And Kelsey Netting. We are also recognizing the Chester County Science Fair winners. The following students were award winners at the Chester County Science Fair and will be moving on to the next level. The Regional Science Fair at Oaks in early April, actually. I think some of these folks have already done that. Eric Hughes from East Coventry, who I don't think is here. Anna Dempsey. And Grace Murray. Rachel Skull. Sierra McFarland. Matthew Rand. Ryan Moser. Kyle Kirsten. Who I don't think is here this evening. Kayla Gentile, who I don't think is here this evening. Congratulations to our students.
This evening, our student representative is not with us, and we're going to forego that report and move into a brief superintendent's report related to our budget projections over the next 3 years, and I'll be joined by Ms. Crumbrine. As a component to our efforts to keep the public informed, I'm announcing this evening that we will, moving forward, use a portion of the superintendent's report time as an opportunity to update the Ojrsd public on the status of our budget development for school year 2012-13 and beyond. During the last committee of the whole meeting, the board considered and discussed an emerging set of circumstances that may challenge our district in 2012-2013 as they are challenging other districts in the Commonwealth and across the nation. We all know that the funding related to public education has gotten to be very complex, and during the last several years, particularly over the last several months, the political and financial environments have brought lots more uncertainty. I think we would all agree that among the best postures to maintain when dealing with uncertainty is to accept it, to expect it, and to plan accordingly. As Ms. Crumbrine presents specifics regarding the next 3 years, I think you'll see that primary among our budget or cost-saving strategies will be a careful management of attrition, as well as maximizing opportunities to find better and smarter ways to do work in the district. Ms. Crumbrine?
Thank you, Dr. DeBartolomeo. I wanted to provide the public with a brief update on where we are with the 11-12 budget, as well as take a look forward to see what the challenges are that we'll be facing.
Significant budget challenges right now. Number one is the Peasers contribution rate, which is expected to increase from about 5.5% to 21% in the year 2014 or over the 14-15 over the next 4 years. This equates to an estimated $6 million financial impact for the district, maintaining the status quo. It's a significant budget challenge for all schools, not just J. Roberts School District, all schools in Pennsylvania. We're also experiencing a declining revenue base. We have had a significant number of assessment appeals, and this equates to approximately $2 million in revenue decline over the last several years. So these two factors, combined with the governor's recent budget proposal, present significant challenges for us. The governor's budget proposal was released on May 8th. We went into detail about this at the Committee of the Whole, so I'm not going to go into detail tonight. Just to let you know that it equates to about $1.5 million for the school district, a loss in revenue of several different things, basic Social Security reimbursement, charter school reimbursement, many different things. So it equates to about $1.5 million. This is just a graphic that shows the Peasers retirement rate, the employer's portion of the contribution rate that was set by the Peasers board. And you can just see that we're going to be increasing dramatically in 12-13 and 13-14. So with a decrease in the state funding right now, this is where we are with the current year budget. Our preliminary budget is a 2.48% tax increase. That's where we are right now. Now, that preliminary budget was approved in February, right before the governor's budget proposal came out. So now we're struggling to maintain at that level. And that budget proposal included about $1.5 million worth of cuts just to make that number. So here we are, we're trying to make another $1.5 million in cuts to keep the 2.4% tax increase. So the first item is elimination of administrative positions. These are through attrition right now. We have some positions that we have not filled, and we will be eliminating those. Plus, we have some retirements for the school district that we know that we will have some savings because we will not be hiring new people at the same level that the people have retired at. There's savings there for the district. That amounts to about $301,000. The food service fund operates totally separate as an enterprise fund. It is not considered general revenue source. So we are making that fund fully responsible for all of the costs of that fund. Right now, the general fund picks up the food service director's salary and benefits. That is being moved over to the food service fund, and the food service fund will pick up that additional cost. Some other schools transfer dollars over. It's either done by payroll or direct transfer to help the food service fund sustain. The students will see a 10% increase in lunches for 2011-12, and either a 5 or 10% increase the following year. That equates to about 50 cents per week per student. And then we're also reducing utilities. We have reduced a significant amount of utilities. This is just an additional piece that we're adding to make the $1.5 million. So we're doing a summer work schedule with reduced utilities over the weekend. So we'll shut down the buildings on Thursday night. They will not be open Friday, Saturday, and they'll be open. The systems will come on again about 5 o'clock Monday morning. So that saves about $45,000 by adjusting our summer work schedules. Employees will still be working a 40-hour week, which is the increased hours Monday through Thursday, full-time employees. So that leaves us with a budget gap of about $1 million. The preliminary, well, not the preliminary budget, but the budget that we just reviewed. In order to balance the budget, we would need to reduce the capital reserve fund transfer at this point by about $750,000. So that takes the transfer from $2.2 million, which is a board designated amount, to about $1.45 million. And it also reduces our operating budgetary reserve, which is 1% of the following year's budgeted expenditures, by about $247,000, or down to $600,000. So those items would need to be implemented in order to balance the budget if we are not able to reduce our expenditures by about $1 million. This is just a pie chart that shows you graphically what our budget is made of. Mostly, obviously, we're in the business of educating kids. Salaries and benefits make up the largest portion of that. We have supplies and equipment for another 3%. Other expenditures, which include things like transfers to other funds, debt service, those types of things are in the other category. And then purchase professional services, those are all contract services. Other services that are outside of salaries and benefits. We're looking at 2012-13, and there are some assumptions in these projections. Number one, the assumption is that we are increasing our taxes equivalent to the Act 1 permitted index, which we're estimating will be between 0.8 and 1% for 12-13. We don't know exactly what it is. It's released in September. We're just estimating at 1%. And we're taking that and we're estimating it out through because we don't really know where it's going to be. It could be a little less, it could be a little bit more, so we're averaging it at a constant 1%. If we leave that Act 1 tax index at 1% increase in taxes, then keeping all of our expenditures consistent, applying the PUSER's rate increases, applying the contractual increases that currently exist, we're looking at about $3 million in budget gaps, 3 to 3.5 over the next 3 years. So we know in order to remain at the index level, whatever that may be, we know that we will need to reduce expenditures because we cannot increase revenues. And there is some pending legislation that may tie our hands with respect to increasing the index, which we'll get into in a little bit. There are other school districts right now that are facing these things right now, going into the 11-12 school year. They have, and you've seen in the papers all around you, they have implemented fees for participation for extracurricular activities. They have eliminated after-school transportation, consolidated bus runs. These are just some of the items that other schools are doing right now. Reducing electives, staffing adjustments, and program adjustments. This is on the horizon for us. Dr. Martin?
Thank you. Because, and as you just noted, we may be considering some cost-saving measures that represent paradigm shift for our district. Our community engagement efforts will be to provide our public clear factual information and provide for appropriate input, and the process will be transparent. I want to acknowledge the board's support for the administration's effort in engaging the community folks and encourage us to do so. For over a year now, we've demonstrated our willingness to engage the public. Last year, you might recall, we did several town halls, one related to budget. We've had town halls on electronic devices, and we're actually having a public meeting tomorrow, during which we're looking for feedback regarding different options that are part of the feasibility study. We foresee that the next budget cycle will have us utilizing town halls, surveys, and focus groups, and engaging constituents in a variety of forms. So those engagement opportunities will be announced once we have a firm calendar for them. Again, the work for 2012, 2013 is important, and it's urgent to us to have the entire community move forward together. The administration is working with Mr. Priest and the board to develop a set of guiding principles that will serve as parameters for decision making. These could include things such as the budget will preserve quality teaching and learning, or reductions to different cost centers will need to be shared equally. These are possibilities, and certainly doesn't have to represent those. Also, cost savings ideas will be evaluated using a decision-making tool that considers or utilizes such criteria as the impact on the students, staff, the community, the impact on the budget, is it long-term or not. In the next slide, you'll see actually some questions that incorporate those different criteria. While we appreciate the coverage we get in the local newspapers, we're going to be proactive in putting information out regarding the budget. We'll utilize our advocate, which is our newsletter. We'll utilize our webpage and other district communications to do the same thing. And we will continue to meet with all interested constituent groups to provide and exchange information. Members of the board, The superintendent on separate occasions have met with Senator Dinniman. I know that board members have reached out to other legislators. Perhaps board members will talk about that in a little bit. The idea is to get current information and see where things are. Again, it helps us to know and to add some level of predictability to what is certainly an uncertain environment. Senator Dinniman, by the way, and this is a public announcement, is sponsoring a rally on Wednesday evening. The rally is intended to restore proposed cuts made in the governor's budget. The senator has also let us know via email that there's some energy or momentum developing to actually move in that direction. Also, on May 5th at 7 p.m., O.J. Roberts parents are collaborating with parents in other school districts to be part of a multi-district PTO and legislative discussion to be held at Henderson East High School. We'll meet at Maryland Henn Street. Is the parent heading that up? Am I correct, Mrs. Renton? Is Maryland heading that up for us? Okay. So I think we posted messages to our community webpage. If you're interested, these are good opportunities for you to get information and to perhaps voice your opinion. We can go to the next slide. The work that we will do next year will encompass these three things. One, of course, we need to adhere to whatever guiding principles are developed. There should be no cost savings measure presented to the board that doesn't meet that criteria. As I said in the beginning, we need to look at the value added for each of our resources to our primary mission, which is teaching and learning. So how can we maximize our resources? How can we work more efficiently? And also, I mentioned criteria that could be part of a decision-making tool. And that criteria would help us answer what is the impact of each resource associated with the cost center on learning, teaching, the health and well-being of students and staff, our strategic plan, and our community at large. All this to say that we will engage in a thoughtful, well-planned, well-articulated process to arrive at those cost savings that represent the most intelligent decisions we can make collectively. As Ms. Crumbrine mentioned earlier, there are some pieces of legislation, a large number of them, actually 2 dozen or so, at this point, taking place are unfolding in Harrisburg as we speak. Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Moldomeo. There are pieces of legislation that are being proposed all the time. Some of the significant ones that could impact the school district is Senate Bill 612, which is economic furloughs. Right now, the district may not furlough for economic reasons. This bill would provide that availability for the district to furlough for economic reasons. There are other pieces of legislation that are coming up, and I'll turn this over to Dr. Joel.
Okay, so Senate Bill 1, commonly known as the voucher bill, which is the Opportunity Scholarships and Educational Improvement Tax Credit legislation. This is going to unfold if it's passed over 3 years. It's intended to offer Title I or low-income students vouchers, or that is a tuition credit to attending school outside of their public school, their resident district. In year 3, we may be affected. We don't yet know. We have over 500 students currently who are low-income eligible and who may be eligible for such a venture. The Educational Committee Minority Leader is on record as saying this could cost as much as $1 billion in 3 years. The share that we will bear, we don't know. Again, uncertainty. We would probably, or we will, need to look at, again, our residency requirements for, or let's say enrollment requirements for non-resident students, and this may or may not have implications for kindergarten students. Senate Bill 904, related to charter schools or charter school, the charter school reform bill, has to do with enhancing options available to parents. Some new things related to charter schools that would be part of this legislation would be the creation of a statewide commission to oversee charter and cyber school functions and to authorize future charter schools. Institutions of higher education will be eligible to create charter schools, and districts will be able to, if they so choose, to convert one or more of their schools to charter school status.
Thank you, and I'll follow up with one other piece of legislation that could significantly impact the school districts, which is Senate Bill 911. There are other varieties of this proposed right now, but that's the elimination of the Act 1 budget exceptions. There are many exceptions or mandates that are imposed on the school districts that we have a hard time controlling the cost for. PSERS is one of them, that's retirement. Another one is special education. It comes with a significant number of mandates. There are others that the district enters into voluntarily, such as borrowing debt. So the Senate Bill 911 would eliminate the use of any Act 1 exceptions to provide for an increase in the tax rate that is applied to the community as a whole. There are also other versions out there that are actually proposing that we actually go out to referendum before we can raise any taxes. So there are many different versions out there right now, and things are really changing daily. So that's why there is such a level of uncertainty out there right now.
Okay, so we may be facing uncertain times, but we have a lot going in our favor. We have a school board that is well focused on the needs of students and serves our community professionally and skillfully. We have competent and experienced school leaders who can certainly help us in this process. We have committed an excellent workforce that is invested in the success of the district. We have parents with whom we have built a significant level of trust, and we enjoy positive relationships with our community at large. In short, we have a foundation on which to plan, and I think we have a process for a good plan. Because of these factors, while the future may be uncertain, I have no doubt that we will come through them better and stronger. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Joel. Thank you, Mrs. Cremine. That concludes the superintendent report. Is that correct?
Yes, it does. Our student representative is on vacation.
That brings us to item 5 on the agenda, board communication. Mrs.
Yes,
Cremine?
Mr. Stone, I have one board communication. This is from Mr. Jake Daly, and he reports to the board that following a discussion with Dr. O'Brien, we've decided to cancel the April 29th legislative breakfast. The decision was based on 4 confirmed attendance by legislators. Only 4 members could attend all or in part of the program. Typically, more than half the members of the legislative delegation attend as such. I regret the need to make this decision, but our date conflicted with another community legislative activity that almost all House members and some Senate members previously had agreed to attend. Absent of the representation by the legislative delegation, the purpose of the breakfast meeting would not be fulfilled. That is my communication.
Thank you. I'd just like to follow up with that. The CCIU has sponsored the legislative breakfast for a number of years. It's kind of a April tradition. This year it's been canceled. I also received that letter, and it said that there are conflicts with other community events that morning that our legislators are attending. I've asked a follow-up question: what are those community events, and would it be appropriate for us to attend those instead? And I have not heard a response back yet. Yep.
Of course, you will communicate that to all of us when you, if you do receive an answer, or when you receive an answer, so that if we can attend, that we.
If I receive an answer, I most certainly will.
Right.
Actually,
if we receive any communication, we'll make sure.
Right. I'm thinking when you. I'm going to think positively, but yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. This brings us to item 6 on the agenda, public comment on agenda items, information, proposals, and statements from individuals or delegations pertaining to items on the agenda. Speakers are to indicate your name, township of residence, and the item on the agenda to which your comments are addressed. This moves us to item 7 on the agenda, committee reports. I'd like to announce that a meeting of the Committee of the Whole was held on April 18th, 2011, 6 p.m. in the Administration Building. The following committees met at that time: Legislative and Policy, Pupil Services, Curriculum and Instruction, Extracurricular and Interscholastic, and the Finance Committee. The next Committee of the Whole meeting has been set for Monday, May 9th at 6 p.m. in the Administration Building. We'll now move through the individual committees. As in past practice, if you've met outside of the Committee of the Whole structure and would like to share your minutes with the board, please do. If you'd like to make an announcement about an upcoming meeting, please do. You may also feel free to say no report. Building and Grounds Committee, Mr. Kleinfelder.
Yes, Mr. President. The meeting of the Buildings and Grounds Committee was held on April 4th, 2011 at 6 p.m. in the Administration Boardroom. Mr. Ojrsd gave an update on the current construction projects. We're pretty much wrapping up all the projects here at the high school, middle school, and West Benson. Mr. Jeff Chambers gave an update on the status of the feasibility study. Mr. Phil Mallory gave an update on the solar RFP, and Johnson Controls presented a proposal for installation of solar panels on the roof of the high school and the middle school buildings. The feasibility study steering committee will be holding a school facility planning meeting tomorrow night, April 26th at 7 p.m. here in the high school LGI room. Everybody's invited to come out and get an update on where we currently stand and provide input into future needs of the school district. The next Building and Grounds meeting is scheduled for May 2nd, 2011, 6 p.m. in Administration Boardroom. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Kleinfelder. Chester County Intermediate Unit, Mrs. Barkas.
Due to spring break, we have not yet met this month. We are meeting this Wednesday, April 27th at 8 p.m. at the CDC in Coatesville. So I'll have a report for you next month. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Barkas. Shall we stick with you, Curriculum and Instruction Committee?
Sure. We met as a Curriculum Instruction Committee with the COW. So we have not had any meetings outside the COW. Our next meeting outside the COW is scheduled for May 16th at 6 p.m. in the Administration Building. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Barkas. Extracurricular and Interscholastic, Mrs. Belinsky. Thank you. Finance Committee, Mr. Freeze. Thank you, Mr. Freeze. Legislative and Policy, Mr. Kleinfelder.
No report this time.
Thank you, Mr. Kleinfelder. Personnel Committee, Mr. Hughes.
No report.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Pupil Services, Special Education, Mrs. Ettinger.
Excellent, Mr. President. We have not met outside the Cal. We are scheduled to meet on May 16th at 7 p.m.
Thank you. Technology Committee, Mrs. McMeekin is not with us. Transportation Committee, Mr. Freeze, Bus Boss. Thank you, Mr. Freeze. This moves us to item 8 on the agenda, recommended routine matters. The board is being asked to address these items as a consent agenda, items 8.1 through 8.10.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Belinsky, second by Mr. Freeze. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. This brings us to item 9 on the agenda. Approval of routine matters. The board is being asked to vote on this section in a consent agenda. Agenda items 9.1 to 9.4.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Freeze, second by Mrs. Belinsky. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. This brings us to item 10 on the agenda, board discussion. Item 11 on the agenda is old business, of which there is none. This moves us to item 12, new business. Item 12.1, approval of the following policies for the second reading as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kleinfelder,
Second.
Second by Mrs. Belinsky. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 12.2, approval to eliminate policies as presented. Moved by Mrs. Belinsky.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kleinfelder. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Item 12.3, acceptance of 2 retirements this evening. Moved by Mr. Freeze.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Bislin. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Item 12.4, approval of the resolutions for the retirements that we're recommending this evening.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Bislin. Second by Mrs. Belinsky. Any discussion? I'm going to go ahead and read the resolutions. The first resolution is in honor of Mrs. Cora J. Smith. Whereas Cora J. Smith, as an employee of the Ojrsd Roberts School District for 29 years, has made a significant contribution to the students and the district, and whereas Mrs. Smith has given unselfishly of her time, talents, energies in serving the youth of our community by performing her job to the best of her ability. Whereas Mrs. Smith has made a great impact on the Ojrsd Roberts District now and in the future. Whereas Mrs. Smith's retirement is richly deserved and recognized as one of high honor and distinction. Therefore, be it resolved that the Ojrsd Roberts School Board of School Directors, the administration, and the fellow employees of the Ojrsd Roberts School District express deep appreciation to Mrs. Smith for her 29 years of loyal service and wish her good health and continued success in her future endeavors. Be it further resolved that June 20th, 2011 be officially declared Cora J. Smith Day in the Ojrsd Roberts School District, adopted by the Board of School Directors of the Ojrsd Roberts School District on 25th day of April 2011. Is she with us? See me? Okay, we have a plaque for her when we see her next. Second retirement resolution. Mrs. Bilger is with us this evening. Awesome. Resolution in honor of the retirement of Kathy G. Bilger. Kathy G. Bilger, whereas Kathy G. Bilger. Bilger. Thank you. As an employee of the Ojrsd Roberts School District for 22 years, has made a significant contribution to the students and the district, and whereas Mrs. Bilger has given unselfishly of her time, talents, and energies in serving the youth of our community by performing her job to the best of her ability, and whereas Mrs. Bilger has made a great impact on the Ojrsd Roberts District now and in the future, whereas Mrs. Bilger's retirement is richly deserved and recognized as one of high honor and distinction. Therefore, be it resolved that the Ojrsd Roberts School Board of Directors, the administration, the fellow employees of the Ojrsd Roberts School District express deep appreciation to Mrs. Bilger for 22 years of loyal service and wish her good health and continued success in her future endeavors. Be it further resolved that June 21st, 2011 be officially declared Kathy G. Bilger Day in the Ojrsd Roberts School District, adopted by the Board of School Directors of the Ojrsd Roberts School District on the 25th day of April 2011.
I don't know if I'm allowed to speak.
Yes, you are allowed to speak.
I know, I've been in this business for 34 years, I don't get it. Yes, 22 years in the Ojrsd Roberts School District, but the first 9 years in the Boyertown School District, teaching the first semester of my very first year, Title I, reading and math as an instructional aid in high school use. And now I've come full circle, and I'm retiring as a Title I math support teacher. How about that? Wonderful. You'll be glad you did. It gives you a really neat perspective of the big picture, and especially working with kids. But it's time. People said, you know. They're right. I knew. Interesting thing is I was deliberating what was not an easy decision. Ask my husband. The choir at our church where I'm a part of sang an anthem once, and they sang, the title of it was, Now's the Acceptable Time. Yeah. But it's been a good 34 years. I have no regrets. I have many, many, many thank yous to the school and the boards that preceded you. There have been numerous ones. To the administration and principals and all those that preceded you. To the staff, faculty, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, secretaries, aides, you name it. It doesn't take a village, it takes a whole community. And everyone needs to be a part of it to make it work. Owen J. Roberts makes it work. And most of all, to the kids and the parents of the kids that I work with, there have been thousands. Thousands. And the neatest thing, sometimes, is when we go out to eat, or when we go to the mall, there's Mrs. Bilger. That's neat. That's saying, I remember you, and I respect you enough to acknowledge your presence here. What neater gift to get? Real quick story. Now I promise I'll sit down. When I started as a Title I instructional aide way back in 1907, I was teaching a social studies lesson. I taught reading and math with kids that needed help in reading or math. There I am, 21 years old, fresh out of college. In walks the principal, followed by a young man, obviously a student, obviously oriental. He said, hi, Miss Geiger, I'm sorry to interrupt your class and your lesson, but I want you to meet, and he told me his name, which I still remember, but for privacy purposes, I'm not going to share that. I know who it is. He's going to be in your class, he's starting today. And I just wanted to introduce you to him, and to you, have a great day. And he starts to leave, and I said, well, hello, welcome to our class, have a seat. And he didn't sit. Uh-oh, behavior problem. No. The principal, who was halfway out the door, said, by the way, he speaks Japanese. No English. That's your job. I don't know when ESL started, but I think I was the first teacher in Pennsylvania to start. I never cut out so many magazine pictures and labels and typed names and put them all over the room. And we had a really great working relationship, learning how to teach each other. And one day, we were walking together down the hall, we go upstairs, and I said, well, go ahead. He said, no, no. He steps back. Teacher first. Teacher first. What did he do? This culture respected teachers and adults so much that they would not even go up to steps in front of someone else. I remember that. Now as I retire, I don't envy you the challenges that face you. God bless you all. The only thing I'm going to remind you of were his words, teacher first. But let's put a twist on it for the sake of our kids and say, kids first. Thanks.
Thank you.
I think we need to vote on the resolution.
Yes, we do.
Correct, we,
Mr. Chairman, we have a motion and a second. We just need to take a vote.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That brings us to 12.5, approval of the following child rearing leaves as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hughes. Second by Mr. Freeze. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 12.6, approval of the following request for sabbatical as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hughes,
Second.
second by Mrs. Bisland. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 12.7, ratification and approval to accept resignations and changes in assignments as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hughes,
Second.
second by Mr. Kleinfelder. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 12.8, ratification of approval for .81 temporary child-specific substitute aid, remainder of the school year.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hughes,
Second.
second by Mrs. Farkas. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 12.9, ratification to rescind the appointment of intramural advisor.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Zelinski,
Second.
second by Mr. Kleinfelder. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 12.10, ratification of extracurricular and supplemental interscholastic academic and athletic appointments as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hughes,
Second.
second by Mr. Kleinfelder. Any discussion? I'd just like to bring up one item under discussion here. We had talked about, as we're heading in to a couple of challenging belt tightening years, we were just going to make sure that we tracked participation and made sure that these moved forward if the numbers were there.
Correct. We'll be tracking participation and providing updates.
Missing up for fly fishing.
Oh, just waiting for Mrs. to catch up. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 12.11, approval to amend the appointment as a .30 LAMS part-time teacher as
So-
presented.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Marcus, second by Mrs. Zelinski. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 12.12, ratification of the appointment of French Creek Elementary as a full-time, long-term substitute teacher. Moved by Mrs. Zelinski,
Second.
second by Mrs. Barkus. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 12.3, approval of the appointment of Mrs. Rance as a substitute support staff employee.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Barkus, second by Mrs. Zelinski. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 12.14, approval of the appointment of the following individuals as extended school year staff.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Barkus,
Second.
second by Mr. Kleinfelder. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 12.15, approval of middle school, elementary school summer enrichment program as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Zelinski,
Second.
second by Mrs. Barkus. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 1216, approval of the following new textbooks for the 2011-2012 school year as presented. Moved by Mrs. Belinsky,
Second.
second by Mrs. Barkis. Any discussion?
Yes, I will be approving these, but I still think that we need to try to work with the technology, especially the technology one, to use our technology as much as we can. So I'd just like to make sure that that is something that we look for in the future. But I will be approving.
Thank you, Mrs. Bisland. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 1217, approval of the following student trip as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kleinfelder, second by Mr. Freeze. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 1218, ratification of attendance of the following conferences as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kleinfelder,
Second.
second by Mr. Hughes. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 1219, approval of attendance of the following conferences as presented. Moved by Mrs. Belinsky,
Second.
second by Mrs. Barkis. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 1220, approval of the Roberts Education Association Memorandum of Understanding as presented. Moved by Ms. Belinsky, second by Mr. Freed and Mr. Hughes.
When would this come off?
Any discussion?
This was live.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Item 1221, approval of homebound instruction as presented.
It's too slow.
Moved by Mrs. Belinsky,
Second.
second by Mr. Hughes. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Item 1222, approval of use of facilities as requested by the Coventry Warwick Ministerium.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Belinsky, second by Mr. Freeze.
I take it this is just a formality.
Any discussion?
So-
We do this every year.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 1223, approval award of bids as presented. Moved by Mrs. Belinsky,
Second.
second by Mrs. Barkis. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 1224, approval award of bids as presented on the notification of the Joint Purchasing Board. Moved by Mr. Freeze, second by Mrs. Belinsky. Any discussion?
Yeah, just one thing, in general, there's some items in here that the bid was not awarded. Are we going to do that at a later date, or we're not doing those items?
No, those are part, when we're awarding those bids, we're just awarding those items that were awarded.
Right, but, so the other ones will come later, or they won't come at all?
Do you mean other Chester County Iowa joint purchasing?
No, there were some items, I guess that you're not going to purchase those items?
Correct, so
Okay.
we won't bring them forward. Any other items, there are other things that you're going to see in May and June, though, other items that have been rejected.
As we discussed at the CAL, these aren't necessarily purchases, these are just the bidding price for those purchases.
Correct. These are purchasing opportunities with the Chester County IU for the joint purchasing for all schools in the county. We also are members of many other joint purchasing cooperatives, co-stars, many others. Just permits us to have multiple avenues for discounted joint purchasing at the school district to take advantage of discount pricing.
So in the bids, they had numbers of quantities.
Right.
The quantities are they the quantities that we'll be purchasing, or are they the quantities we anticipate to purchase? That's what they
Very
bid.
anticipated to purchase their estimates.
And
And
that-
we're usually close with that because we quote it around. Do you know what I mean? We can still quote that around.
But then these roll up to the county CCIU purchased with other districts to get the
Exactly.
lowest price.
Any more questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 1225, ratification for approval to apply for Pottstown Area Health and Wellness Grant. Moved by Mrs. Zelinski,
Second.
second by Mr. Kleinfelder. Any discussion?
I have just a question of why this is a ratification, since it doesn't,
It had to be submitted.
so we're ratifying the fact that we submitted, not that we're accepting it. Because it doesn't actually apply till July of 2011.
Correct. This is not an acknowledged receipt award, which will come next if we are actually awarded. This is just the approval to apply for the grant.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Brings us to item 13 on the agenda, public comment. Information, proposals, statements, and or questions from individuals or delegations pertaining to items other than those on the agenda. Speakers are to indicate their name and township of residence. We ask that you speak not more than 3 minutes. That brings us to item 14 on the agenda, board request for information. Before I ask for a motion for adjournment, I would like to announce that there will be a brief executive session following this board meeting to discuss personnel matters. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Zelinski,
Second.
second by Mr. Hughes. You with us, Mrs. Carmine?
Yes, I am.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned.